Welcome to the 6Wheels Consulting Podcast, dialoguing disability and discussing difference, inclusion, and all abilities in today's world. Now here are your hosts, Matthew Shapiro and Bob Nolly.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back. You have found your way back to the 6Wheels Consulting Disability Podcast. This is Dr. Bob Nolly, and here is your host and my good bud, Matthew Shapiro. Matthew, how are you?
I'm great, Bob. It is another beautiful opportunity for us to be on the podcast together, and I could not be more excited.
It's beginning to look a lot like... Oh, we shouldn't say that yet. Nobody's supposed to know what time of year it is.
Yeah, don't jump the gun yet.
We got evergreen content.
Yeah, we got to...
I actually, for the first time, listened to that kind of music on the way home from where I was earlier today. All right, so the heck with that. How has your week been?
My week has been good. I am finally home from all of my extended travels, so it's been nice to be homebound for a while. And I've been playing catch up on a lot of projects that I haven't been able to work on. I'm working on a new promo video for my speaking stuff and working on some new programs there, and made some new connections in some of these recent conferences I've been at. So trying to cultivate those relationships. Things are always good.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you had a good week. Good. Me too.
Yeah, thank you.
So maybe we have a far-reaching range now. Of course, people can listen to this anywhere in the world, and frankly, they are. All over the world, people are listening.
Yes.
But tonight, we turn the radar dish, we turn our focus, we turn the laser, and we point it at the great state of Indiana.
Uh-oh.
That always wants me to say, Indiana wants me. Lord, I can't go back there. That's an old song. That's way before your time.
It's the Hoosier State.
Thank you. It is the Hoosier State. Now you're just showing off. So Fox 59 ran this story about, according to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, children between the ages of 3 and 17, between the ages of 3 and 17, have a 1 in 6 chance of having a developmental or intellectual disability. So for those kids, finding a job, or heck with finding a job, just finding a friend, is going to be a challenge for them. But somebody there came up with a program called Best Buddies. And thousands of people nationwide are able to find both jobs and friends. Best Buddies works this way. So you pair up participants, peers, with a student in need, buddies. The goal is to help them build meaningful relationships and develop independence. You know, we've talked about that concept right there, that core concept that goes a long way toward the life you deserve in the disability community, and that is developing that independence.
Sure.
So each year this program nominates champions, and they work to raise funds and awareness about the burdens facing people with disabilities and their families. One high school in Indiana, Carmel High School, it sounds like California, but it's Indiana. It's home to the state's largest student-run chapter. And one of them students there is the youngest champion nominated in state history. They're a sophomore. And they got involved. You know, sometimes you just need a little inspiration, folks. Yeah. They got involved as a 6th grader.
Gosh.
And she was paired up with someone else who was born with Down syndrome. And 5 years later, the two of them are glued together. They're inseparable. One of them says, and I'm not reading their names because we should not do that on the air.
Correct.
But they'll go for walks. They'll go to Best Buddy activities or programs. They go get something to eat. Anything you would do with a normal friend. And together in this way, they've been able to navigate what can be, pretty difficult years. Heck, I look back on my own middle school years and knew students that were just having horrible times.
Sure.
With all sorts of, heck with middle school, even when you get to high school.
That's right now. I'm 27 and I deal with that even till today. So,
I mean, the social structures of those two school elements are just brutal.
Yeah, no,
or they can be. I'm sorry, yeah. That's very negative, but they can be.
Sure.
So that's quite a program. Are you aware of this program existing here in the RVA?
Yeah, so I actually have heard of Best Buddies. It is actually I think a nationwide and even worldwide program that tries to do exactly what the article talks about, which is, pairing individuals with disabilities up with individuals who don't have disabilities, and helping having them develop relationships and friendships with one another. And I think that is, you know connection is probably one of the most important things that anyone, whether they be it a person with a disability or a person without a disability, can strive for. And, to have outlets like the Best Buddies program to help cultivate those connections is so important. I consider myself to be somewhat of a social butterfly, but I also know that not everyone is me, and I love people, and I love being around people, and I love
connecting. You'll talk to anybody.
Yeah, I will. My mother will admit that I will talk to anybody.
Heck, you talk to me.
Yes, I do. I do indeed.
No, I mean in the beginning when we met.
Yes, yeah. Yes. You came right up to me and we just started a conversation there.
Yeah, and you didn't have to go, Mom, get this guy away from me. No, it wasn't like that at all.
Yeah, you didn't scare me off that easily, so that's good. But that connection piece is so important. And so to continue to read things about Best Buddy programs and other similar programs that I think try to do friendship in a genuine way, right? Like, sometimes you have these mentorship programs and they're kind of like forced relationships. But the great thing about the Best Buddies programs and the other programs that are similar to Best Buddies is that they're not forced relationships, right? Like they are genuine relationships. And as you were explaining from the article, these are relationships that exist for a long time. Being the social butterfly that I consider myself to be, I didn't really have a problem connecting with folks. But what I did have a problem with was having those social outlets outside of the school environment and the structured school environment. And it wasn't until probably 10 or so years ago that social world started to open up a lot for me. And that really came from the decision that my parents made, which was to allow my friends who were able to drive and willing to drive, to allow my friends to be able to pick me up and take me places. And for me, that opened up a huge social avenue and social outlet that I now sort of take part in every weekend, where I may be going over to a friend's house. I may be going out to a restaurant or a bar with a friend. I'm doing the typical things that 27-year-olds would do, and the fact that they are trying to develop and continue to develop programs like Best Buddies to continue to develop those relationships just makes my heart warm, because I do know the struggles that I had. And like I said, I'm a very social creature, but I didn't get invited to parties a whole lot. I didn't get invited to different outings when I was in school, just because people didn't know how to get me into their house and didn't know how to actively interact with me or interact. Let me say it this way: actively interact with me outside of the school world.
Yeah, right? Even though you are the social butterfly that you are.
Yes. And honestly, that was a level of isolation that sucked, frankly. As social beings, we crave social interaction. And so to not be able to do that, that's one of the reasons I really jumped in head first into a lot of my extracurriculars. But then also, now as I've gotten older and evolved and have friends that are willing to be like, yo, let's go to a bar, let's go somewhere, let's go on a trip, let's do something. And I have friends who are willing to make that work and make that happen. That's incredible. I can't tell you, I have several friends in particular that I'm basically over at their house every weekend, just sort of hanging out with them, eating dinner at their place or watching sporting events and things. And like,
I know you've mentioned this in an earlier episode, told the story about your friends being able to do this. And now that it's come again, I'm going to ask you this question.
Sure.
This is kind of shaped up, at least to my ear, as being kind of a watershed moment in your life.
I would take it as one of the many watershed moments that I've had. I don't know if I'd call it the watershed moment, but it is one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it is one that has helped me continue to develop and like not, I'm not always spending my Friday nights at home every night now or every Friday night, or I'm not always spending every weekend just chilling in my house. Because I can call up a friend and be like, what are you doing? And they'll come pick me up. And the other great thing and the other really important thing that that we purchased as a family was portable ramps, so that I could then put those portable ramps down in most of my friends' houses and I can get into their house.
Oh, sweet.
So that like my house was the social house, and my friends would come to my house. And that's still very much welcome, and it still happens on a regular basis where friends come to my house. But now I can go to their house, right? And I can hang out with their kids or hang out with them or, just kick it in a friend's house, which anyone at my age would do. So, I always try to give some takeaways in each one of these episodes that we do on this marvelous podcast. And the handful that I would say, and I think it would go in line with this amazing article that you found, is, and these messages are particularly to parents, don't be afraid to let your kid, go over to a friend's house. Obviously you would want to do your due diligence and make sure that that's a person you can trust, and you're like it's a good person for your kid to be around. But if you check off all of those boxes, don't be afraid to allow that person to come pick up your child who has a disability, whether it's a mobility challenge or has an autism spectrum disorder, any sort of disability. Don't be afraid to let them be in that social world. And don't be afraid to incorporate accommodations that would allow your son or daughter or individual to take part in those social environments.
It's 8:00.
Buy those ramps, or allow your child's friends to, use their wheelchair. I'll be blatantly honest too. One of my other big barriers is if I have to use the restroom when I'm over at a friend's house. And it's gotten to the point now where several of my friends have said they'd be willing to help me in that environment. Which again is a huge step in the right direction, because I don't have to then, either one, watch what I'm drinking or not drink too much, whether it be alcohol or Pepsi or whatever the case may be, not drink too much so that I would have to then go home to go to the restroom. And two, like I can just let loose and not have to worry about that aspect of going, there's not a limit on how long I can go over to a friend's house. If it's somebody that I've shown how to do that and is willing to do that, that is another huge, as you called it, sort of watershed moment for me.
Yeah, and I'm totally incorrect in pointing out as the watershed moment. It is definitely one, and by that I mean things trended to be better in life for you once that started happening.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
And, the Best Buddies program kind of uncovered a couple of things as well, where people work with their buddies, and they go into it thinking that they're going to make an impact on them. No, they go in hoping they can make an impact. They go in realizing there's an opportunity perhaps to help that person and make an impact on them. And more often than not, that ends up going the other way.
Sure.
They end up being the impactee instead of the impactor, which is just truly amazing. And the second thing that comes out of this more often than not is they get jobs together.
Sure.
And the fact that they are together and have, if I just call it, a kind of support unit, that doesn't, even though that's what it is, that undersells it terribly.
Well,
when you go into a grocery store, and Kroger is the one in Indiana that's named here. I can't name the people, but I can name the corporations. But Kroger, they've worked there for, a dozen years.
Sure.
And that's a huge victory, I think, for them and for the program.
Well, and there's actually a word. It's kind of, those are known as like built-in supports, right? Because like you have your friend there who will help you if you need help with different supports. And so like that helps in so many different ways, because that person has somebody that they can rely on, somebody that they trust. But it's also good to have those sort of peer supports. That way you're not being dependent on a family member or a sibling to help with that. And the fact that there are students willing to and friendships evolving from those relationships is really cool to see.
Well, we'll let that be the last word. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to the 6 Wheels Disability Consulting Podcast with Matthew Shapiro. This is Bob Nolly. Think inclusion, keep rolling forward. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.